everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the very first query in the Microsoft Access Database system, which is query by methods of entry. So this is a query about people's entry into government, how people in Chinese history attained eligibility for office. If your research question has something to do with the bureaucratic system or examination history, this will be a very important query for you. It basically allows us to figure out who are the people who entered into government through a specific way. Let's say examination, merit, ancestors' privilege, or recommendation, you name it. Or if we wanted to look at who are the people who entered into government in this specific way at this specific time period, or in this specific location. So we're still going to demonstrate how to use this query through a specific example. Let's say we're curious what are the jinshi from this area, Kunshan in the Ming Dynasty for entry years 1550 to 1599. So we can see from the three bullet parts that there are three parameters that we can manipulate here. The first one is the jinshi, which is the highest and final degree in the imperial examination. So this specifies the way in which the people entered into government. We're curious only about people who passed the examination. And we're curious about this specific time period, 1550 to 1599. Those are the Wanli and Jiajing eras, the intersection of those two. And it is a time period where, which marks the climax of a very, very mature bureaucratic system in Chinese history. And we're curious to know where did all the people, all the talents come from in this very mature moment of bureaucratic history. And we're curious to learn about this specific region. Kunshan is a county in the Suzhou in southern China. So let's say we have this question and we have these like three parameters that we care about. Let's see how we can use the database to actually execute this query. Okay, so when we pull up the CBDB Microsoft Access form, let us click on the very first query by methods of entry into government. And we can see a lot of variables here for us to manipulate. And the first one we're going to look at is the entry type. So this area is the entry type. And we're going to click on select entry to look for jinshi category that we're looking for in this specific question. And there are a couple ways to navigate this. The first is that you can see on the left-hand side, there's this panel that is a tree that organizes all the different categories. And if you click on that, it will give you more specific information. It will help you narrow down to the specific type you're looking for. And it happens that the type I'm looking for is jinshi, which is under examination, under regular examination, under jinshi examination. And I'm going to look for jinshi general. So I pick this one, and then I can click select. So here we go, jinshi. There's another way to do it, which is if you don't want to go down like the nitty-gritty of this form, of this tree, what you can do is that you just search keyword. Yes, jinshi, and then click search. And it doesn't seem that none of these seem to be what we're looking for. So we can click on find next, do another search. Okay, those don't look like what we're looking for either. Find next again. And then we see here, jinshi examination. That seems to be what we're looking for, right? The general jinshi category. Okay, and we can find it through this way. Then we click select. Okay, and there is another more advanced way if you're looking for a specific selection or like a couple different ways of entry together. And what you can do is that when you choose, let's say like you pick the specific different types of entry ways, more than one, you pick them and you select. And then there's a way for you to save the entry. It will just save the list as a file to your computer. You save it, and you can open the file to modify the specific entries, and then you can import it again. That is another way of selecting entry, which is similar to what we talked about in the very first video about import a list of people in the social network analysis. But here we just want to look at one specific type, which is jinshi, so we don't need this like list, but that is definitely an option if you're looking at multiple categories at the same time. So let us go back to jinshi and just select it. Here we go. Okay, so this is the type or the entry pathway that we've already selected. And the next thing we're going to look at is the years. For the years, we want to limit the time parameters to 1550 to 1599. So we just put these numbers here, 1500, 1550, 1599. And as you can see from the bar, there are different ways of limiting or specifying the dates. And the first way is to use entry year. So entry year, this basically limits this search result to be people who entered government between these two parameters, which seems to be what we're looking for. And there's also index years, which means basically birth years. But those are not technically exactly birth years, because for a lot of people, the birth years are missing in their historical documents records. So what we do is that we created this construct of index years that is artificially estimated, and we calculated that year based on a series of assumptions that are reasonable and relatively accurate. So we come up with index years for every individual, so that every individual will become searchable. And it's just for fuller, better and better data coverage, so that people would not be left off just because they don't have a specific entry year information. This will help us get a more comprehensive result. Our original research question is to look at people who entered the government from these two, like between these two years, but let us try index years first, and we'll see actually a larger amount of people who were born between these two parameters of years, and we'll see what we get. The last parameter we're going to manipulate here is the place. So it is the right-hand side here, this little area. And what it does is that it limits the search results to the place, either the place where the people we're looking for came from, or the place that the entry into government took place. So if we use person address, it limits all the people coming from this area. If we use entry address, it limits all the people who entered this area, entered government from this area. And as you might imagine, there's a lot of overlap between the results we'll get from clicking on any of those icons. So let us put use entry address here, and let us see. We're looking for Kunshan, this specific region. And here we're going to do the keyword search instead of because there's not a tree here that categorizes all the places. That is not how geography works, right? So we're going to just do a keyword search, put Kunshan, and then we can see there are a lot of Kunshan popping up. That's because there's a Kunshan in each historical time period, and there's been a lot of historical changes to the border of Kunshan, or what Kunshan actually entails. So we're going to look for the closest, the Kunshan from the closest time period. We're looking for the Ming Dynasty, 1550 and all the way till 1599. So it is within this range, and we select. Here we go. This is the Kunshan we're looking for. However, there are also other functions to this place variable. And as you can see, there is this icon called select all filtered. This means that there's a way for you to select everything that is named Kunshan. However, it is not what we're looking for here. We only want the specific Kunshan in this specific time period. So we can just select one, but there's definitely possible ways for you to select all of those Kunshan, and you want to look for people coming from all of these historical Kunshan plural. So you can select all filtered, but here we just need the specific place. So we just click on select. Okay, and for the use XY reference and include subordinate units, it's not that important. We can just keep it as it is here as the default setting. So here we go. We have all the 3 parameters all set. We want jinshi from these specific time periods, and we want to look at people who entered into government from Kunshan. We're ready to run the query. Let us click on run query. Oops. Okay. It seems there's no records, which means that our criteria is too narrow. Maybe what we will do is that we will look at the person address, people who came from Kunshan, instead of people who entered for examination or entered into government from Kunshan, because there might not be that level of specificity in the historical records that this database is built from. So let us try use person address. Okay, here we go. We have 44 records of all of the people who entered government from these time periods as a jinshi from Kunshan region. There are a lot of ways to make sense of this data that we get. And for example, if we want to have a chronology of people from the oldest to the youngest, we can sort the index here, smallest to largest. So this is the person who's the oldest, who was born the earliest, all the way till people who were born the latest in almost near this time parameter. And we can also sort based upon entry year. So people who entered government the earliest and people who entered government the latest. The thing about that is we can see a lot of zeros here, which obviously doesn't mean that they entered government at year 0, but actually those are the people who lacks the information of entry year. There's no entry year for them recorded in historical documents, historical sources. So it's actually a null signifier. That is, but they still show up because we used index years as our benchmark. We limited the search, we filtered the search based upon index years. And we can also see that there are people actually who didn't enter government within this time frame, because we again seem to be using the wrong filter here. If we choose entry year, people who do not have a entry year record will not show up, which means that we're probably getting less records than we should or than we want to. But that is the way to kind of specify the entry year, and unavoidably it leaves out people whose entry years are not documented. But it's very likely that this guy who was born in 1580 could have entered, or especially this person who's even older, could have entered the government within this time frame, but there's just no record to prove so, and they will get left off. So those are 2 kind of flexible ways of filtering that you can use back and forth to kind of see what balance you want to achieve to get more people or to get more accurate accurate entry year range. Okay, so for our purpose here, we will actually use entry year, and let us run the query again. Okay, we have 43 people, and there you will see that they're slightly different from what we got, because for this time there will be like people who entered the government exactly between these 2 parameters. Okay, so we can still sort them all the way to 1598. We can also sort them based upon their date. It's not necessarily people who are older were entered the government earlier. Okay, so this is how we can sort the table. And if we want to save this table to our local files, whatever, we can, what we can do is that we click on this triangle thing here on the top left corner, and then we copy and paste. We Control or Command C, and then open our notebook, open an Excel or any sort of program you're using, and then paste it. All the data will be pasted there. That is the easiest way for us to save this data. Okay. And CBDB also has a lot of other ways for us to process this data. Actually, let us look at some of the other information that we got. That is more than entry years and index years. We also get this entry pathway, mode of entry, which is exactly what was selected. And we also get the exam rank. We also get some king names, which are not specified here, but we can potentially get them. And also we can get the person ID of these specific people. We can get their parental status, their entry place. We can have their dynasty, Ming Dynasty. We can have the sources of this record. Basically what historical document this record of the person comes from. Okay, so this is an overview of what we get, and there are other ways for us to actually import this data to more advanced ways of analysis, and which I would just introduce them in broad strokes without doing a full-time demo. And for example, if we want to reuse these people to perform some other query on them in this panel, like other queries which we will learn later, what we can do is that we store person ID. Oops. Yes, we want to replace the current ones. And then when you do another query in the future, there will be an option to automatically pull up all of these that you saved in the CBDB system. But this is not a very good way of saving them for the long term. The best way is still like this, copy and pasting the entire table, because this will get covered very easily. If you store person IDs of another set of values, it will be covered entirely, and this data will be lost. So it'll be best to save it locally. But this is a very convenient way for you to have another round of search based on the same group of people. Maybe we can feed all of this data into a social network search, a social network query, and you can visualize all of the social connections between all of these people who entered the government from Kunshan in this specific time frame. That is one use. And also there are a lot of other kind of built-in functions. We can save this to GIS. We can save this to a file that GIS is able to process, and we can visualize where those people were from on a map, which is most likely Kunshan. And we will also have these are two file types that we can save to upload to GIS. And also we have saved to Neo4j, we have KML. Those are for Google Earth and for other types of geographical graph databases. And so please feel free to explore with these functions if you care about the geographical. These are basically about like data visualization, about the geographical distribution of these people, or about like uploading them to a graph database that you care about or you use the most often. And just a little bit here, we can switch the language to English and traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese. So there will be different languages and you can swap between. And yes, here we are. Those are all of the basically all of the information you need to know on this form. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. And I hope this is useful and this can inspire some fun, inspiring research questions from you that can benefit your own work. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned. See you next time.